Hello and welcome to Battlefield Hardline news video. Today the NDA for 2 new maps and a new game mode was lifted, so now we get to see some gameplay from the 2 new maps and the new game mode. The 2 new maps are called Riptide and Derailed, and the new game mode is called Rescue. So last week all the big YouTubers got flown out to the developer studios to play on these 2 new maps and the new game mode, and the NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement, was lifted today, so they have released all the gameplay. I've watched through it all and I'm going to tell you all of the main facts from it and point out any of the main details. So the first map that I'm going to start off with is called Riptide. It's the only map that we have ever seen in Battlefield Hardline that includes naval warfare. So you can see boats driving around with miniguns attached to it, but they aren't the sort of attack boats that you see in Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3. They're more just really fast speed boats and ribs. The reason why this is the first map that we've seen boats on is because this map is an island which is surrounded by the sea. The main building, which is where all the heist bags and all of the objective points are going to be, is surrounded by this massive big flat garden that you have to run across without dying to get to the objectives, and around that garden is a lot of sea. In the sea there's also a lot of other little islands, and this is going to be really good for the snipers, but also it's going to be harder to drive the boats as they have to manoeuvre around the islands so they don't get beached, and then they're stuck on an island and can't get to the main objectives quickly. Another big thing about this map is that there is a Levolution event in this. The Levolution event is very much like in Parasol Storm, where a big storm blows in and there's lots of rain and stuff, so it's very hard to see, but it's going to just make the map a little more exciting when it comes to the halfway point. From the gameplay that I've seen so far, this map looks like it'll work really well in the Conquest game mode. They didn't actually get to play the Conquest game mode whilst they were over there, they only got to play Heist, but all that's going to happen in Conquest is the boundary is going to be moved out a little bit further, so more of the little islands are going to be exposed. I think it's going to be really good for Conquest because the main flag can be in the centre, and then I think it will be surrounded by all of the other flags. So it's just going to be able to spread out the gameplay a lot, a bit like they did in Parasol Storm as well in Battlefield 4, and it's just going to be a really good fun game mode to play, especially with all the boats in it. Moving on to my final point for this map, and it is that in the centre building, it doesn't look like there's that much micro-destruction. So on the map Hollywood Hills, you can shoot through all the walls, you can pretty much destroy absolutely everything. In this, it's only micro-destruction, as in you can destroy tables and chairs. You can't actually blow your way through walls, which will be really fun. I don't know if this is just because of memory capacity, so in Dust Bowl they couldn't put lots of destruction in, because the memory on PCs and on consoles couldn't cope with the size of the map, and all of the memory that it would take to store all of the little micro changes. So maybe this is just what's happening on this map, so hopefully maybe in the rescue game modes and the heist game modes, they might be able to up the destruction a little bit, as it will be easier as it's a smaller map for all the consoles and PCs to cope with it. In Conquest I don't really expect to see it, because if they can't cope with it now, they won't be able to cope with it in a few weeks' time. So moving on to the second map, which is called Derailed. It's based in a train yard, and this is where we saw the rescue game mode play out. We've already seen a tiny bit of this game mode being played on this map, and it was in the very first trailer that we ever saw. We saw a sniper sitting up on the lower roof shooting inside to the big warehouse. So that roof that we saw a sniper sat on in the trailer looks like it's going to be a very important part in this game mode, because all the players seem to go up there to defend the hostages whilst their other teammates went and picked them up. So if you don't know what rescue is, it's basically just Hardline's version of search and destroy or defuse, or the one that it's most similar to is hostage rescue from CSGO. So it's 5v5 teams and there's 2 objectives. You have to go in and get one of the objectives, which is a person, and then you have to take them out to the car if you're a policeman. If you aren't a policeman, if you're one of the criminals, you need to either kill all of the police or just wait until the time runs out without the police actually getting one of the hostages out to their car. I like how they've changed the theme around for this. It really suits the theme of the game, for it not to just be a bomb, for it to actually be a person, because it would suit a real life situation between the police and the criminals and just makes sense for the theme of the game. So in comparison to Riptide, what we've seen, this map is absolutely tiny. I know it'll be a much smaller version in Rescue, but it does look like it's going to be a fairly small map, because the area that they're playing in will probably be the main part of the map, and it is pretty small. It's just one warehouse surrounded by a lot of trains, and the warehouse has 2 different levels of roofs, so you can get onto the main roof, then up onto the top roof, a bit like you could in the desert map that came in the expansion pack for Battlefield 3. And inside the warehouse there's a lot of objects and things for players to hide behind if they're on ground level, so having a sniper up there on that roof to spot them and call them out to your teammates will be really useful, and especially since it's 5v5 you'll be expecting more competitive game modes and teams playing, so they'll be able to communicate well together, so being able to call out a player who's in front of someone will really help them to react to it and hopefully win the game. Surrounding the warehouse there's a lot of trains. There isn't actually the derailed train in this part of the map, but there's a lot of used trains where you can crawl underneath them and inside of them, which is really good for moving up stealthily towards the objectives. One of the bad things that I've heard about this map is that it's a bit like obliteration when you get the objective, so the enemy can see every 5 seconds where you are whilst you're carrying the objective. and it stops you from being able to be stealthy whilst you're moving with the objective. But overall, this map does look really good. It looks like my favourite out of the two. I do like the look of Riptide, but it's a little bit too open for me. I like to be able to move up behind cover and sneak upon a lot of enemies, which you'll be able to do in Derailed really easily. Moving on to a couple of separate points that were new to the gameplay from this event. The first thing that you see is you can now wear masks, a wolf mask for the criminals and a dinosaur mask for the police. This is probably going to be really hard to earn. It's just going to be able to make you show off to the other players that you're really good and that you spent a long time earning this achievement. But it also does take up one of your gadget slots. Now this is going to be really bad for the rescue game mode, because any help you can get in the rescue game mode with gadgets or attachments or any sort of equipment is really going to help you, because you'll have more of a chance of being able to act in any situation. The second thing that we get to see is that you get to see the spectator mode for rescue. This isn't that big of a deal, but if they're looking at making this game competitive, which I really would like to see, this really helps when you're watching it in competitive to know who's still alive, who's winning and who is dead, and it also helps the commentators to show you the best parts of the action at all times. So that is everything. The final thing to say is that both of the maps can also be played on Conquest and Hotwire, because they did have time to play on them at previous events, but they didn't actually show us any gameplay of them. There's probably still an NDA on them gameplays. But that is everything, so if you have enjoyed and this has been useful, and please like, comment, subscribe for more Battlefield Hardline and Call of Duty news and tutorials. So thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.